I mean, we're always part of understanding the world in a way, right? Like over time, we will always have references to certain things, and the more we push for the car of the future to look a specific way, it will become that thing potentially. So
Yes.
I think there's also a bit of a responsibility for all of us as creatives or designers to kind of shape it in a way that we want the future to be like, or that we want our present to be like. It's an interesting phenomenon that people are so drawn to very generic representations of specific things. Like outside of the branding, I remember we did this project for IKEA and Space 10, which is a research lab of IKEA in Copenhagen, a few years ago, where they asked us to um, take a shot at our vision for the car of the future when cars drive autonomously. How should they look like? Anyway, long story short, the point was that we Googled car of the future, and it's incredible how stereotypical every single image looks like in a specific certain way with technology, blue line, minority report sort of aesthetics. And I find that
Mm.
fascinating how we are so drawn to these categories and narrow things down into these little boxes. Economically, there's always a risk if you go away from the standard and try to do something else because you don't know if the market responds to it, or if you might be that odd brand out. But then at the same time, it also there's a huge potential reward for it because you are standing out, you are recognizable. I mean, we're always part of understanding the world in a way, right? Like over time, we will always have references to certain things, and the more we push for the car of the future to look a specific way, it will become that thing potentially. So
Yes.
I think there's also a bit of a responsibility for all of us as creatives or designers to kind of shape it in a way that we want the future to be like, or that we want our present to be like. For example, it's also with the whole AI thing. I think what to me is one of the most um, weird but also kind of terrifying parts is what's the bias, what's the common visual language. What does the AI do if you don't give it input anymore? For example, in
Mm.
Midjourney, there's this weird thing I explored last week that if you just give it letters or like random symbols, it 50% of all the images it creates, or even 70% were like females in their early 20s with some sci-fi backgrounds, which is super weird, but I
Yes.
think it has to do with probably the bias of the data set because it scrapes the internet and then probably, I don't really know, but that's the majority of a big part of the images maybe are these kind of things. So like somehow it starts to become that. And I find the society in general always has this tendency to choose very specific biases or stereotypical representations of things. And I feel us as creative, we also need to always put an effort in widening that horizon, like not just repeat the already given standard, but try to broaden the horizon of what things could be.
Sci-fi is an interesting one because people like Geiger and certain movies, Star Wars, these things like they'll influence. So Geiger like influenced the team of Alien, and they built that thing, and now that's just become the sort of the visual narrative of one thing of what alien life could be like, and we've sort of locked that in and reinforced it with tons of fan art and movies and fringe pieces of content. And I think you keep talking about the car of the future. There's people like the Jetsons on the cartoony side, but things like Blade Runner sort of defined a generation of people, creatives, of what their perception of the future could be like, and then they sort of deepen that by adding more layers of their own interpretation on top of it.
It's also trying to question a little bit, how far does branding go? I don't think it actually stops anywhere. It starts at the logo, but it doesn't stop until even your social media posts are branding in a sense.